What is going on, world? What's up, everyone? It's Zero here. Today, I am bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below podcast. Welcome, everyone, to the 8 Below podcast. For those of you who are new to the podcast and to the show, this is a show, everyone, that is obviously conversational, where we're going to be talking about everything in the world of video games, movies, esports, the gaming industry, all the things that we love about this industry. And in particular today, everyone, we're going to be talking about none other than Red Dead Redemption 2. And guys, this is a game I've been wanting to talk about ever since I really started the podcast. I've been wanting to talk about this game and give you guys some of my feedback as to why I absolutely love Red Dead Redemption. But on top of all of that, really talk about one major topic in today's podcast. And that is, simply put, how did Red Dead Redemption 2 not win the Game of the Year this year? How did it happen, guys? We're going to talk about it. And it's something that I definitely want to get into very soon. But as I said, guys, we talk about all kinds of different things in the world of gaming and esports. And I try to kind of talk about, as far as like each individual game. So obviously the first episode of the podcast, and now we're on the fourth episode, which is awesome, by the way. But in each episode, we talk about one specific game, generally speaking, whether that is just a game that we're playing, a game that we're really excited about in the future, or we're looking forward to the continuation of a franchise or of a gaming series. We talk about a whole bunch of different news that's going on around that specific property. And so this episode is going to be no different. Today, guys, we're going to go ahead and, as I said, talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. We're going to be talking, of course, mainly about, how and why Red Dead Redemption 2 did not win the Game of the Year. We're also going to talk about some of the, one of the title updates, which was Title Update 1.04. And we're going to be talking about Rockstar and the Warehouse, the Outlaw Essentials Collection update, and of course the 20th anniversary sale. We're gonna be talking about a few different things, some new items that are coming out, of course, for Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. So we're just gonna kind of get into some news based around the game. But first and foremost, guys, let's talk about the Game Awards this year. And I know this is, obviously, when we're talking news and such, this is old news, right? The Game Awards obviously happened, a couple of weeks ago, and I want to talk about this though, because I thought that the show overall, it was okay. It wasn't, the greatest Game Award show ever. I feel like, a lot of it is kind of long. It feels like, I feel the same way though about the Oscars. It just takes forever, it feels like. And I don't know if it's just me. It feels like, can we just get to the good shit? Can we just get to the really the best picture, the best director? Can we just get to that? Do they have to, kind of go into all the best indie film ever, made of the year? And I look, guys, I'm into filmmaking. I went to school for filmmaking, so obviously I'm into this stuff, but even I find it a little bit boring at times with the Oscars. And I'm going to say the same exact thing about the Game Awards. It's a little bit slow. It kind of gets a little bit boring. It's kind of, I just wish it went boom, boom, boom. You kind of are the awards we're hearing about all the awards. They're not having all these, it's a long drawn out process. And I understand that it's all for entertainment purposes and want to make sure it's long enough where they're getting, the potential revenue off of course, commercials and all of that. We all understand that, but it would be nice if it was kind of a little bit shorter. I felt like the Game Awards was a little bit long this year. That's just my personal opinion on it. But that all being said, that's not really the obvious focus of this conversation. It's more on, the results here of the Game Awards. And look, guys, a lot of the games won, rightfully so. There was a lot of, a lot of games that rightfully deserved awards, obviously. Now, Red Dead Redemption 2, we're not going to really go into all the different awards that Red Dead Redemption 2 won, simply because they really cleaned up house overall. They won so many awards, which was absolutely incredible. But they didn't win the big one. And, that, of course, is the Game of the Year. Now, questions surrounding why it didn't win Game of the Year. It lost to, of course, the actual game of the year, of course, was God of War. For those of you who did not watch the Game Awards and did not hear about which game actually won, it was God of War. And look, guys, I played a lot of God of War. I put a lot of time into the game. I really enjoyed it thoroughly. I really did. And I also put a lot of time into Red Dead Redemption 2. And so, here's the thing. I really felt personally that to give it to really any other game other than Red Dead Redemption 2, I thought was absolutely ludicrous. I don't know why Red Dead Redemption 2 did not win Game of the Year. Now, it was probably, right under God of War as far as, winning it all. I just, with all the detail, and we're going to talk about this, guys, the detail with both these games was really spot on. Now, I feel like the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 is actually, significantly better than God of War. And I'm saying that, I do think God of War had a very good story. I really do. And I'm talking, it was a very good story. I thought that the characters were incredible in God of War. The scenery, the graphics were astounding. They were great in a God of War universe that they've completely changed up God of War. And that might have been why it won Game of the Year, because you've had this formula all these years for God of War, and they changed it completely. They took a leap of faith, and look how it paid off for them in the long run. I mean, it absolutely paid off. For PlayStation as a whole, I mean, so PlayStation, and Sony are obviously extremely happy with how well God of War was received. And, I'm assuming we're going to see numerous more God of Wars in the future. Here would be, and I know it might be very nitpicky things in regards to God of War. I would have to say this, guys. The one thing that I can say that the differential between Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War wasn't, obviously the stories are completely different. Everything about them is almost substantially different. The one thing I liked about Red Dead Redemption 2 more was that the sceneries and such have, were consistently, you're kind of all over the place. And in God of War, it felt like everywhere you were going, it felt like there was always snow on the ground. It was always snowing. You're always in the mountains and such. And I just didn't like that concept of always feeling like it was just cold the whole game. And I understand, that's not necessarily true as far as, there were some levels or some of the missions that you were on in the game. It felt like, just normal. Like it wasn't, it wasn't, always snowing. It just felt like the game primarily revolved around you being in the mountains. It was, always snowing. You're playing in these, snowy types of, the elements of snow. And with God of War, as far as that franchise is concerned, it just felt a little bit off to me that there would be so much snow. Whereas in the other God of Wars, it felt like there was more like fire. There was more, you're fighting in different, all over the place, but it felt like there was a little bit more balance as far as, there's some snow, but there's also some tropical areas that you go to, or there's, deserts, hills, it just a little bit more variety. And I know there was some in God of War. It just didn't feel like enough, at least in my opinion. Now let's get to, on the flip side of this, Red Dead Redemption 2 felt like there was a huge variety to me of, we're talking, just the mountains, you got those snowy mountains. You've got, of course, you've got like those desert-like feel. You have all these different kinds of, different types of terrain throughout the game that you're experiencing. And just the amount of detail in Red Dead Redemption 2 that is noticeable. Now, God of War had so much detail, and I'm not going to take that away from it at all. God of War had a lot of detail to it. The different outfits that your character, that Kratos had, all the different, so in depth, I remember very, vividly the serpent. When you go inside of the serpent's mouth in God of War, you're like going through, and it's just the amount of detail and such was, when you were inside, and then when you came back out, the actual detail on the serpent. It just, that's stuff that you definitely remember. With Red Dead Redemption 2, there's so many moments like that. And we're just talking the story mode, right? We're not even talking about Red Dead Online, which we're going to get to here shortly. Just the story itself, guys. I mean, we're talking, there lots of people were really talked about, of course, the horses, and how when it's cold out, the horse testicles shrivel up like it would in real life, like just stuff like that. There's so much detail based around Red Dead Redemption 2 that I thought, how? There's no way. I had a conversation with my brother about, who's going to win the game of the year. And I said, without question, Red Dead Redemption 2 is taking it home. Now, I had thought, oh yeah, there's going to be other games that win some awards. There's going to be, there's going to be maybe, the story or the screenplay or the music, something like that. There might be other games that'll win some of those awards. But we're talking, when we're talking game of the year, the big one, okay? The differences in legacy and such. And I've talked about this a lot so far on the podcast about, like when you're talking about the greatest games of all time, was it really one of the greatest games of all time if it didn't win Game of the Year? And I know we could probably go over this for hours upon hours, days upon days of games that deserve Game of the Year, but did not win. They lost to something, that was just as good, maybe just a tad bit better. And so that game gets so much more of the credit as being, one of the greatest games of all time, essentially. But I've got to say this, guys. Red Dead Redemption 2 deserved it. Even though I do feel personally that God of War was a great game. It really was. It was a great game overall. But Red Dead Redemption 2 has so much more, not just the story. It wasn't really just the story. It wasn't just the detail, based around the game. It was also, this is going to give you hundreds of hours of playing time. Now, we're not only talking about the campaign, which is like running around on average 60 hours to beat the campaign. So we have so much story mode. Then you got the Red Dead Online, which is going to give you, hundreds of more hours to put into the game if you would like to put that much time into the game. And I don't see why people who are big fans of Rockstar and fans of the franchise, why wouldn't you want to put that kind of time into it? Because it's just that damn good of a video game. One of the best that I have ever really witnessed or played. Witnessed just, it was almost a spectacle. You're just watching this game unfold before your eyes, and the story's unfolding in front of you, and it seems like you're playing a movie, and you just feel like you're a part of something by playing this game. And that's the truth. I mean, as you play Red Dead Redemption 2, you realize just how this game feels like it's changing, or how it's a spectacle of gaming, and how you don't have to rely solely on a multiplayer to sell a lot of copies of a game. You don't have to rely on those things still. And I believe God of War proved the same thing. I believe that when you look at these games that are going to be coming out here in the future, a lot of games that are coming out are just specifically multiplayer-based games. And, not that that's a bad thing, but we're starting to kind of get away from what video games started as, which they started as campaign, story-driven, like an art form. As an art form, it started with campaign and story modes, and people wanted to tell a story through video games that you could play. And so when you start changing that, or you're focusing more so on a completely different aspect, you could say it's evolving. The industry is evolving, but at the same time, I believe that we still need really good story modes in the industry. And that's what we got from Rockstar with Red Dead Redemption 2. It's what we got with God of War. We got these games that, sold incredibly well, and they're very good. They're very good games. So let's put it this way, guys. If you look at the overall package of what you get with Red Dead Redemption 2 versus what you get in God of War, okay, there's so much more that you get in Red Dead Redemption 2. You not only get a longer campaign, but you also get an extensive multiplayer that kind of reminds you of just similarities with, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5. And you can kind of see where the GTA Online and the Red Dead Online are somewhat, you know, they're somewhat similar in ways, right? Two completely different games, but similar. So I got to say this, guys. Rockstar, you knocked it out of the park. You absolutely knocked it out of the park. You guys deserved Game of the Year 100%. I mean, there is no question in my mind. God of War was a great game, but I don't believe it deserved the big one. And I think that this is probably the first year, guys, that I've really seen, as far as I can remember, going back, watching the Game Awards in the past, this was the first year where it really felt like they got it wrong. It just did. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's other years in the past that it felt that maybe a different game might have deserved it, but I really felt this year they got it wrong. And I would love to hear what you all think about that. If you guys think that Red Dead Redemption 2 deserved it, or if God of War actually deserved it over Red Dead Redemption 2. I would love to know from you guys. And we're going to come back, of course, to talking more about Red Dead Redemption 2, the future of it, right? I want to talk, big scope here. We're talking, as far as the future of Red Dead Redemption 2, the future of Red Dead Online. What does Red Dead Redemption 2 bring to gaming long term? Let's put it that way. Let's look at the next 10 years, okay? Let's kind of look into the future a little bit. Red Dead Redemption 2, what does this bring, let's say in another 10 years? If there's going to be a sequel, what would that look like? Or if, what is the Red Dead Online going to evolve to? Because we obviously know that Rockstar is working on other properties. It sounds like the next one is going to be Bully 2 or Bully 3. I forget which Bully they're even on right now. I think they're on... Are they on a Bully 3 already? I'll have to look that up, guys. But I think the next Bully installment is going to be next. Most likely, GTA 6 will be coming up somewhere along those lines. And I would even assume possibly a Max Payne 4 will come out as well at some point or another. So we're talking a full cycle here of other games before there would even be the potential of a Red Dead Redemption 2 or a Red Dead Redemption 3, I should say. So another, to maybe cap off the trilogy. Unless they start working on some new IPs, I think Rockstar, they're of course going to continue GTA. I mean, that goes without question that they want to continue GTA. The question really lies in, what other properties are they going to want to continue with? But that said, let's move into what this the title update, which was 1.04 of Red Dead Redemption 2, and we're gonna kind of just briefly talk about this, guys, as far as what all this update did necessarily, and we're gonna kind of just go base kind of overall gist of what it did. So as far as the Red Dead Redemption 2 story mode, what the update did was it fixed an issue where the player could become stuck at 90% when loading an autosave made immediately after the mission Country Pursuits, if it was the only open mission. And there's numerous, Country Pursuits actually had a few different issues with it. But that said, we're not really going to go too in-depth here with the story mode as far as what they changed in regard to the story mode. I want to talk more about what they did with the Red Dead Online as far as the beta is concerned, moving into, the full-blown online. They did some general stability improvements. They fixed an issue where players were removing an injured horse from the stables without healing it would resolve, and the scrawny nag appearing when whistling for their horse. They fixed an issue where players could not exit the house in the mission Love and Honor. They fixed an issue where players would be able to load beyond 90% in the Red Dead Online beta unless they entered story mode first. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I'll share my screen with you guys as far as what I am seeing here, so you can kind of follow along with the general beta of the Red Dead Online update and what it all consisted of. They also fixed an issue where players could crash to the Xbox home screen when resuming from a suspended state after connecting to Xbox Live services. And then lastly, they fixed an issue where players could be kicked from Rockstar Games services with an error after completing part 2 of the mission Honor Among Horse Thieves. So that's it. I mean, there's a lot of changes that they made to the beta. Of course, a lot of people were, asking, there were some bugs, there were some things that were kind of going wrong, but that's pretty obvious when it comes to a massive multiplayer experience, which is what Rockstar wanted to bring for Red Dead, a massive online experience. And I think a lot of people overall really do enjoy the Red Dead Online. It sounds like they've got a pretty big base of players that are really coming back and continuing to grind. Now, we obviously heard about some of the issues with the Red Dead store in regard to how much time it takes to unlock certain items, or just how much it would take as far as the in-game currencies in order to unlock certain items. And it seems that they made it almost, for certain items, it would take absolutely forever, it would feel like, to get some of these actual cosmetic items in the Red Dead Online game. I'm not sure if they're going to be changing any of that in the future. It's hard to say if they're going to make it a little bit easier to unlock certain items, because you can use real in-world money to buy certain items, which obviously are fully cosmetic. They're not going to necessarily give you a competitive advantage over your opponents. I believe there was one or two, I think it might have been one or two guns or something, were actually giving people a competitive advantage, and I believe Rockstar did address that, and they did change that. I'm pretty sure. But that all said, guys, there are things, of course, with any kind of multiplayer experience and with any game that you're going to have certain bugs and things that need fixed in the grand scope of things. And they're going to need to be consistently updated and consistently, changed up as you go. So that's something that I think is really important for people to kind of note and realize, that these things, of course, Rockstar, they're pretty on top of everything for the most part when it comes to, cosmetic items, when it comes to, just generally speaking, updating the games, whether it's GTA, whether it's, Max Payne, Red Dead, whatever it is that they're working on, and they have a team on, they're really good about updating and getting, guys on this stuff. And they're definitely good at listening to the community, unlike some developers out there. So that's something that you definitely have to take note of, essentially, okay? The other thing I want to talk about really briefly here is the Rockstar warehouse, which there were some new items from the Outlaw Essentials collection, and I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about this. There's all kinds of different unlockables, or just interesting things that you could actually purchase here. They have some new Red Dead Redemption 2 items, include the Domino set and Pendleton blanket, up to 40% off the classic Rockstar games and gear. So this is stuff, guys, obviously, that you can purchase. They I'm not sure as far as how, if the availability on some of this stuff, but some of these actually look really sick. This blanket I really want to pick up at some point or another. I'm not sure how long they're going to actually have some of these items for on sale, or how long they're going to have any of this stuff available. They may very well not. Up on this top right hand corner it says out now, so it's all I believe it's all available overall. But let's just look at it. You got this domino set lined with plush padded felt. This 28-piece domino set comes in a fire branded Hidge wooden carrying box. I mean, pretty sick, yo. A domino set, that's absolutely badass. Dynamite USB charger, that's really cool. I mean, these are all just really neat items that you can just get, and hey, why not? Why not, guys? Now, this is kind of interesting. Rockstar Games, the 20th anniversary sale on classic games and gear. So, 20th anniversary, I got to say, the GTA 5 hoodie is fire. I like their hat as well. The bully ball or dodgeball is really cool, as well as that Zippo lighter. I mean, just absolute fire. But that said, up to 40% on some of their games. I gotta say, guys, San Andreas is one of the best GTAs made. GTA 4, I know everyone loved GTA 4. I was actually not a massive fan of it. Red Dead Redemption 1 was incredible. LA Noire was a pretty surprising game. It's very different. And see, look, this is why I love Rockstar so much, guys. You look at the games here. Okay, they have just so much variety. You're talking LA Noire, which is of course game based around solving cases in LA, and I think it's a really well put together game that's very different, and that's why it's kind of a change of pace. It's kind of a slower game, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of one of those slower games that you can really enjoy, just kind of chilling, sitting back, solving some cases, and having a good time. And it's a really good acting. The people who did the voice acting in it are really good. I believe the main character was one of the main actors in Mad Men, and he was really good in that show, and he's really good in LA Noire. Bully, guys, a lot of people really enjoy Bully. You know what, guys, I think they are making it's a second Bully, it's not the third. I played the first Bully and I was thinking to myself, man, I haven't played a second Bully, so I think it's Bully 2 is what they're working on next in the future. And then of course Max Payne, guys. Max Payne was probably, what was it, maybe it was probably one of the first 5 games I ever played on the original Xbox. So Max Payne, guys, one of the grittiest stories you'll ever play. If you had the chance to play Max Payne 1 on the original Xbox, what a story. So gritty. It's that classic kind of revenge tale. And then Max Payne 2 was really good. I thought Max Payne 1 was probably better. And Max Payne 3 had, of course, better graphics and such. I still thought that the story was weaker than the first 2. That was just my personal opinion. I'd like to see Max Payne 4 come out at some point in the future, and I hope they kind of go really dark again like they did in the first couple of games. I would really like that. There's a lot of lore around Max Payne, and there's a lot of lore around all of these games. Red Dead Redemption, what an incredible story. Lots of fun. And I remember the days of Red Dead Revolver. I mean, Red Dead Revolver was absolutely incredible. I love that game. One of my favorite games on the original Xbox as well. And then you got Red Dead Redemption, which I thought everything about Red Dead Redemption was better than Red Dead Revolver. Other than the main actor. I know everyone loves John Marston a ton, but Red in Red Dead Revolver was awesome. I really like that guy as a main character. I would have loved to see him come back at some point or another in in Red Dead Redemption, the first one. I would have liked to see you play as Red instead of John. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear all this stuff from you guys as far as what do you all think? And that's what this really all comes down to, guys, is what do you all think about, Red Dead Redemption? What do you guys think about the future of Red Dead and the Red Dead Redemption 2's online? Or we should say Red Dead Online, because that's, technically speaking, the accurate name of the online mode. But there's so much stuff that's happening, guys, in gaming as a whole, and I think this all gets back to the Game Awards. And I really have trouble with Red Dead Redemption 2 not winning that Game of the Year. And as we said earlier in the podcast, we said, how God of War, obviously, I think we can all agree was a great game for those of you who did play it. And if you have not played it and you own a PlayStation, definitely try out God of War. I mean, I think you will be incredibly surprised at how good this game is, and I'm extremely excited about the future of the game. But that all said, Red Dead Redemption 2 was better in a lot of different standpoints that you look at. From first of all, a campaign, a story mode. I thought the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 was absolutely incredible. Number 2, the online, there's just multiple modes. Number 3, just all the very noticeable details on Red Dead Redemption 2 that you could just tell there were changes in the game consistently throughout the story. That would be number 3. And I mean, I could probably go on and on. I mean, number 4 would be the characters are all really great. The acting's incredible. I got to say, Kratos is probably more of a, I guess, kind of more of a badass figure, you know, and I thought that the acting in God of War could probably compete, obviously, with Red Dead Redemption 2. But it just felt to me that Red Dead definitely deserved it overall. And as I said, you know, when we're talking, you know, these game awards, a lot of people don't really, you know, they kind of take it lightly. They kind of say, you know, oh, it's not a big deal, it's whatever. But this is, you know, this is legacy, guys. And the bigger that gaming gets, the more these legacies are going to matter. You know, a lot of people say, as far as, you know, sports, right? Football or baseball, hockey, you know, the major sports, right? Or basketball, of course. You know, they say, like, it's not a big deal that, you know, it's just basketball. It's just football. You know, if let's just say, for example, let's take football. Let's say the NFL, right? Let's say that the New England Patriots didn't make the playoffs for some reason this year. They didn't make the playoffs, right? You know, a lot of people would say, you know, it's just football. It's not a big deal, man. Like, who cares, right? And in all reality, yeah, maybe it doesn't matter that much because it's just football. But there's a lot of, there is a thing, guys, it's called legacy that's actually on the line there. You know, let's just say Tom Brady, you know, he doesn't make it to the playoffs his last year playing football. That's a pretty big ordeal. You know, you don't make it to the playoffs. You don't make it to another Super Bowl. You know, these are like legacies, right? That, you know, sports have kind of laid out almost, you know, traditional sports has almost laid out. And now you have esports that's kind of coming up now. And that's why it bothers me so much when you have in esports, you have a lot of these guys, whether they're pro players or, you know, internet personalities, whatever the case might be, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of those personalities and you know, pro gamers will say, you know, somewhere along those lines, like, let's just take Call of Duty. Since I know Call of Duty relatively well, I know the game. I've played it for years, and I've also, you know, of course, watched the esports side of things. A lot, you know, there's numerous tournaments throughout the year, and they usually have, of course, like on the circuit, they have, you know, let's just say 7 events, okay, and then you got the big event, which is, of course, Call of Duty XP or COD Champs, which is the biggest event of the year. Well, a lot of those players or streamers or, you know, content creators, personalities will say that, you know, if you're winning all those tournaments throughout the year, and then the big one, which is COD Champs, the Call of Duty Championships, if you don't win that, it's not a big deal. Like, you want to win it, but it's almost like not necessarily as big it's not a big deal. We've won all these other tournaments throughout the year. Call of Duty Champs, it is what it is. Whatever. We at least won some tournaments. And I disagree so heavily with this because when I think about it, if you would have lost all those tournaments all the way up to Call of Duty Championships or COD Champs, I personally think, and let's say you won COD Champs, you won that, that's the big one. That's where it matters the most. It's similar, in my opinion, to, say, soccer or football. It's similar to that where you look at, say, for example, you've got and I've said this on the podcast before, you've got all these different, you know, leagues, right? You got the Premier League. you've got the Champions League. And sure, if you win the Premier League, that's awesome. If you win the Champions League, that's great. That's awesome. Like your team is the best team in that in the Champions League or in the Premier League, whatever the case might be. But if you don't win the World Cup, if you don't win that, that's the big one, guys. And I know you can't really compare this because COD Champs is once a year, whereas, we got the World Cup every 4 years. It's hard to compare, okay? But it reminds me somewhat similar. I look at some traditional sports and I compare it to esports, right? I compare those things every once in a while. So to me, personally, I really believe that there is legacy on the line, okay? And when we're talking, this all gets back to the Game Awards here. This is all kind of moving back to the Game Awards. This is about legacy, guys. It's not just, oh yeah, whatever, God of War won the award, kudos to them, well deserved. Which, look, guys, God of War was not by any stretch of the imagination a bad game, and I keep on saying this. But did it deserve to have that legacy of being Game of the Year over Red Dead Redemption 2 with what we've all witnessed from Rockstar and this game? I mean, these are things that I want to have real conversations with all of you about, and I think that's important. And I hope we can have a real conversation about the Game Awards and how these awards. Because the Game Awards is technically the biggest award show, right? It's like the Oscars of video games, okay? It's the cream of the crop, essentially. So I really, that was the one, if Red Dead Redemption 2 is winning all the other Game Awards from other Game Awards, right? It does those matter, but they don't matter like the Oscars. Okay, like the Oscars, like the Game Awards. Let's take Leonardo DiCaprio for example. Leonardo DiCaprio has won a ton. I mean, I could probably, I could look up, how many Golden Globe awards for Best Actor has Leonardo DiCaprio won. It's a lot more than Oscars. Okay, let's put it that way. But if you won a bunch of Golden Globes, you won a Golden Globe award, is that the same thing as winning an Oscar? It is not the same thing, guys. It's not. If Leonardo DiCaprio didn't get that Golden Globe, but he got the Oscar, it's like, he's going to feel so much better about winning the Oscar than the Golden Globe because of the stature or that prestige that is the Oscars, okay? The Game Awards are the prestige. They are they're the best when it comes to at least what we have in gaming right now. Could the Oscars start including video games there? Most likely not. Would there be a different, Game Awards that becomes the real big one like the Oscars? But this is, that's definitely possible. But right now we have the Game Awards. So that's why I believe that this is legacy, guys. These are things that shape history. Okay, it's history now. It's like it's in the books. God of War won over Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, the Eagles beat the Patriots last year in the Super Bowl. Okay, that's history. All right, it's in the books forever. It's not going away. Right? It just isn't. Okay, so that's why I think us in the gaming industry, whether it's just gaming in general, from a standpoint of story modes, of screenplays, of the multiplayer modes, whatever it might be, we need to take these things extremely seriously. I mean, when we're talking about awards, I think some people get so into all this stuff as far as like, trying to get all the Easter eggs in a specific game or like in a campaign mode or something, and go really hardcore into everything and have all these theories about what the future could hold for their favorite franchise, which I think is absolutely great, by the way. But I think that we need to put a lot of energy as well into the games that really deserve winning, especially like the Game of the Year. That's super important. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, it won a ton of awards, guys. It won a lot of awards. Okay? based around the Game Awards. It won a lot of the awards. I think it won the most awards actually out of any game. But it didn't win the big one. And the big one was, of course, the Game of the Year. That's the big one, guys. That's the cream of the crop right there. And so all of this that I'm kind of comparing, esports, and I'm comparing traditional sports and all of that to this is the simple fact that I believe us in the gaming industry need to take these things, really seriously. I also think like the esports awards, I think those sometimes feel a little bit, I'm not going to say rigged, but I'm going to say that I feel like they need to maybe do it a little bit differently moving forward, because the esports awards sometimes it doesn't seem like they necessarily, some of the teams or some of the people winning those awards necessarily deserve it over others. So that's just what, and I think over time we're going to get better. I really do, because esports and because gaming is still growing. It's still new almost. Like, I mean, it's not new, but it's evolving, I should say, over time. I just think that we need to be consistently getting better. And I think that this is the first year in probably a lot of years I really felt that that the gaming community, or whoever decides the game awards, who actually wins those awards, who the team or the game that won, of course, which was God of War, I don't believe that they deserved it over Red Dead Redemption 2, even though God of War was an incredible, incredible game. That said, guys, I would love to hear from all of you. Let's have a real conversation, everyone. I want to say thank you to all of you for all the support I've gotten so far on the podcast. It means absolute world to me. And let me know what topics you guys want me to talk about next. What other games do you want me to talk about? And what in particular, and who in particular, do you want to see on the podcast in the future? I have a lot of guest stars that I want to have on the podcast moving forward. Lots of people that I'm really excited about, behind the scenes that we're working on. Bring it on the show so we get some other opinions on some of these games and esports and just gaming as a whole. Because I think the main point of this, guys, is I want to try to do my part in seeing and trying to help the growth of esports, the growth of gaming, and, just try to, see what we're doing right, wrong, and what we can do better moving forward. And that goes for myself as well. I want to see what I'm doing right, wrong, and what I can do better with the podcast and with what I do as far as content creation goes moving forward. So let me know, guys. And I want to say, thank you, whether you guys are listening to this on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, or iTunes, or on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me for the 8 Below podcast, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Stay positive, and we will see you guys and girls all in episode number 5. Peace.